Good morning and welcome to the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners February meeting. We'll start with a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would look for a motion to open today's meeting.
Open that.
Commissioner.
Second.
Second is Mr. Roach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and it's about 10:05 right now, 10:10. Okay, so this morning we're going to go into executive session for personnel and mostly personnel. There is one litigation issue, but mostly personnel. And then we're going to come back out in probably 40 minutes, hopefully. And unfortunately, we have a live screen on, so you're going to have a blank screen for about 40 minutes, and we'll keep that in consideration next time we arrange the meeting. So I look for a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel and litigation.
So moved.
Who moved is Mr. Keating. And a second?
Aye.
Mr. Roach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and we'll see you in about 45 minutes. I'm looking for a motion to come back out of executive session. Can I get a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Tom Roach, and seconded by Paul. Okay. We have quite a busy agenda this morning, and so I'll try to move through it as quickly as I can. This is the February meeting of the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners. We're holding it early on a Saturday morning. We have four sets of minutes to adopt today. The first set of minutes is from November 14th, 2019. Commissioner Roach and Commissioner Carlo were absent at that meeting or abstained from that meeting, excuse me. Therefore, there's only two commissioners on the board currently that could vote on those sets of minutes. What happened at that meeting, it wasn't televised. We replaced the oil burner in the Bronxville firehouse, and we went out for bid, and we got a proposal for $28,000. We had 3 quotes, and we replaced the oil burner. I think Mr. Rabin and myself would agree that the minutes are correct. It's just there's not 3 commissioners to vote on it. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next set of minutes. There's no legal requirement to approve minutes, just it's good policy. The next set of minutes is the November 20th, 2019 minutes, and all commissioners attended. So I would ask for a motion to adopt those minutes.
So moved.
And Paul Carlo, any second?
Second.
Tom, and Commissioner.
I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain. So I'll say aye. Tom?
Aye.
Stu?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll pass those minutes. The next set of minutes is December 12th, 2019. And I'd also ask that in the future, have the Fire District Secretary attach Jamie Henstrom's detailed Treasury reports to the minutes. I think it's important that we attach those Treasurer's reports to the minutes when we file them in the records. Also, the December 12th, 2019 minutes we're talking about now, the Fire District election certification, it was not in the minute package. That should be within the minutes as well. It usually is. So in putting that in there, I would say we should, I would look for a motion to approve the December 12th, 2019 minutes. So I'd make that motion. Anybody want to second it?
Second.
Paul, all in favor, and I guess Commissioner,
Abstain.
you're abstaining. I'll say aye. Stu?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we'll pass those. The next set of minutes is January 7th, 2020, and that was our reorg and monthly meeting, I guess. So Commissioner Rabin was excused, so I'd look for a motion I'll make a motion to adopt the the January 7th, 2020 minutes.
I'll second.
Paul, Dennis and Paul. Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Raven?
I'll abstain.
Abstain? Aye. And Commissioner?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll pass those minutes. So that's it. Okay. The next we have up is the treasurer's report. Jamie Henstrom, if you could present that.
Thank you. So as of the 2019 year end, our financials present a net budget surplus of approximately $1.1 million. This is made up of expenses coming in under budget approximately $900,000, and income over budget of approximately $220,000. And what's driving that was our Treasury direct investments that we started making in 2019. The expenses we saw, as I think we talked about throughout the year, that really came in mostly under budget were our CERT claims. Our hospital fees were a little bit lower than anticipated. At the time we do our budget, we're relying on estimates from NISHIP about what they anticipate increases to be. And that doesn't always, it's a little bit conservative. Professional consultant fees were lower than usual, and so were our New York State retirement costs. Of the 1.1 million surplus, there was $160,000 that is going to be shown as budget encumbrances going into 2020. That was money for items that we had agreed to purchase in 2019, but were not. For whatever reason, we didn't actually pay out the money in 2019. It was just waiting on delivery, certain things, the Cascade system, which is now in, the invoices in this month's bills, the chief's car, which, we're stuck waiting for red paint, and the radios that were budgeted for in 19, they were the extra 12 that were approved at the January meeting. So that's about $160,000 of that 1.1 million. Certain items, even though we have a surplus, we do need to make budget transfers just to accurately represent the budget for 2019. We made them throughout the year, so they're fairly de minimis what we have left. The largest one I would point out relates to the overtime for firefighters. This was on track all year. At the end of the year, we did find ourselves with a lot of absences in December. We had a few long-term injuries or absences that were unanticipated. And we also had a training day that was well-attended in December, so that's really what's driving the transfer. I know going into this year, that was one of the things we did, was we did increase the budget specifically for training. So I think without that, we really would have been pretty much where we thought we would be. So that's going to be the largest one you see, and then the rest are just smaller items that we're just going to clean up. This way the budget's represented correctly.
Very good.
Do you want me to read them, or?
I have them, you do a much better job. I'll tell you what, why don't we do it this way? We'll do a combination. I would propose a motion that the following budget transfers, as stated by soon-to-be stated by the treasurer, be adopted, and then you can state your budget transfers, and we'll hold for a second afterwards. Okay?
Ready? Okay. 23413.1 overtime firefighters from 9010.8 New York State retirement, the amount of $122,269.09. To 3070.2 telephone from 3125.4 computer software and internet, the amount of $1,970.05. To 3130.04 office supplies from 3125.4 computer software and internet, the amount of $272.91. To 3145.4 association dues from 3140.4 subscriptions, the amount of $180. To 3410.13 fire captain salary from 3410.15 uniformed firefighter salary, the amount of $1,957.80. To 3410.14 fire lieutenant salary from 3410.15 uniformed firefighter salary, the amount of $6,905.37. To 3410.11 fire chief salary from 3410.15 uniformed firefighter salary, the amount of $897.83, to 3410.18 treasurer secretary part-time assistant salary, from 3410.15 uniformed firefighter salary, the amount of $5,623.60. And the last one is to 3410.22 capital improvement station for interior, from 3410.21 capital improvement station for exterior, the amount of $8,250, for total budget transfers of $148,326.65.
Perfect. Who would like to second that?
I'll second it.
Mr. Carlo. I'll poll the board. Commissioner Keating?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Raven?
Aye.
And I'll say aye. And thank you, Jamie, that was excellent and super. And I guess you still have, right now, you have the ongoing 2019 audit you're doing, right?
Our auditors came on site the week of January 20th. They're finalizing on their end, putting together the draft financials. They have not been provided to us yet for review. So it's the audit itself, the field work is complete, and we're waiting on copies of the reports for our review.
Right, and we have the AUD filing that pending on February 28th, and I'm sure you're right on target with that.
Yep, that's correct. And then just other items, I did include in the treasurer's report this month a list of the items that we budgeted for in 2020. The items that are sort of either like a unique purchase or a one-time purchase. I just thought it would be helpful to have it in front of the board, as you know, not everyone on the board currently would have voted on the last budget, and also, some of them are larger items. To just as we go through the year and we start making these purchases, everyone is aware that these were, planned for when we put together our budget for 2020.
Okay, good. And a couple other items here. We know we just executed a 5-year contract that started. The former board executed a 5-year contract that starts as of January 1, 2020, and that runs for 5 years. That's the longest CBA in the future that there's ever been written, I think, in the fire district's history. So it would be a good idea, I think, if we could do a 5 and 10-year forward look to see what our 5 and 10-year budget implications are now that we have visibility of this 5-year contract. We don't know the health care costs for 5 years, and we certainly don't know the pension, the pension costs, but we can probably look back and do a pro forma.
Yeah.
And I think it would be helpful to have some long-term look at where we stand and what just where we stand.
Okay.
Is that fair to everyone?
Not a problem. We have the data.
Well, if we determine how much money we're going to save by hiring new firefighters, that'll help us in our decision in the future, for sure.
Yeah, well, that'll be part of the equation, I'm sure,
Right.
Yeah, because it would be which way.
depending on which way that number rolls.
Right, and what I'm saying is we can look at it both ways. I mean, if you look at it, what the positions were budgeted for, as if we were staffed in those positions, then, yes, you would take into consideration the newer salary for new firefighters, and that would have obviously less impact on pension costs and healthcare, somewhat. So that would be part of it if we did it assuming we stayed fully staffed, and then if we assumed as it is now. I mean, I can run it once the data's there. We can run it either way.
Right, because you have
Yeah.
you also have, it's hard to budget for this, and most municipalities don't. When you hire someone, they're 25 years of age, they retire in 30 years, they're 55 years of age, and your health care, and as people live longer till 85, 90, particularly in this area, people tend to live longer.
Thank God.
You got, a lot of future costs, and it's hard to build that into an.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, when you see our financials, I mean, that's what the OPEB section of the financials is on, and it will, the numbers are high. You'll see that, but that's what we have an actuary that does that every year. Every 3 years, they do a full calculation, and then the other years, they roll forward. But that's the purpose of that reporting, and the state requires us to do that to show what our future liability is. And you have an actuary involved to say, based on retirement ages, what ages people are living to, so you can use that as a guide.
And that's that was started, what, 3 years ago?
Yeah, that was new.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also now they've changed the way you have to report it. You used to report a portion of the amount, and now you report the full amount. Last year was the first year for that. So that's why the numbers look a lot different than they used to.
Okay, so,
Put that together.
well, we've already reviewed the bills, so we might as well do that now. So I would look for a motion I'll make a motion that we pay the 2 warrants and the credit card bill. The first warrant, which the chief has reviewed, except for the certiorarities, and the board has reviewed all of them. The first warrant is for $113,530, no, excuse me, it's for $214,100 spot 97, and that's the January 27 warrant. The February 1st warrant is for $113,534.50. We have credit card bills with the due date of February 18, 2020, for a total of $2,807.21. The total for those is $330,442.68, which is one of our smaller monthly bills. I went through the bills. The only thing I did notice, we purchased, it looked like, some file cabinets that didn't look like it was price competitive relative to Amazon pricing. Doesn't say Amazon's the right pricing, but they didn't look price competitive. So, Chief, maybe when they do purchases, they can get multiple quotes on some of those kind of items.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion, we pay those bills, and looking for a second.
Second.
Paul? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Jamie, you can pay the bills. And we included one late bill that arrived yesterday that's in the warrants.
So you have to change the numbers.
I already changed, yeah, I changed them. Chief, how's your report? You want to give us your?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. I'll consolidate my December and January report. The alarm activity for December 2019 was 348 alarms for the month. 11 were fire-related, 161 were EMS or rescue. And mutual aid was given 2 times, once to the city of Mount Vernon and once to the village of Scarsdale. And we received mutual aid 1 time in December from New Rochelle Fire Department. For the year 2019, we had total alarm activity of 3,906 alarms. Of those, 109 were fire-related, 2,062 were EMS or rescue-related. So that's the totals for last year. And for January, the totals are, total alarm activity for January 2020 is 109 alarms total. Fire-related were 10, and EMS rescue were 172. We did receive mutual aid 1 time for a fire from New Rochelle Fire Department. The 26 new portable radios are currently being programmed and will be placed in service shortly after the members are trained in their use, and we'll come out with that new radio policy on the tactical radio frequency for the fireground radios at the same time. Maintenance mechanic Tim Dalton has been very busy with several projects. The Bronxville boiler is in and operating. The Bronxville oil tank has been repaired. The fuel lines are operating properly. And I would like to thank Eastchester Highway Department. The pothole patrol came by and patched the excavation that the oil tank company needed to do to repair the fuel lines. So thank you to the Eastchester Highway Department for their patching of the driveway. And it's a permanent patch. It was not like a cold mix. So it's that back driveway is all repaired. Fire prevention and code activities continue with numerous plan reviews and inspections. A lot of their plan reviews are current construction for new buildings, and also many people are installing solar panels. There's a lot of companies in the towns and villages that are getting people to sign on for solar panels, and fire prevention has to review all those plans to make sure the clearances are kept for us to be able to operate on the roofs.
Which is a problem. If the roof is all solar panels, it's kind of hard to fight a fire from the roof, right?
But we can only enforce the code. We can't make it more restrictive. We would like to have paths for us to put ladders up, But I've seen some where it's like they have a second floor dormer with a window and solar panels right there. I wouldn't want to put a metal ladder on top of the solar panels, so they've kind of cut off a means of egress for us to rescue people by putting solar panels in front of their dormers. But again, if it meets the code, it's hard for us to, stop them from doing what they're entitled to do by the code. Currently, one member is out on long-term absence, and one member continues to work on restricted duty. On December 18th, there was a safety committee meeting with myself, Commissioner Tom Roche, and I believe Commissioner Rabin was there?
I was.
Yes. So we discussed washers and dryers being put in the firehouses for the members to clean their uniforms, not gear washers, but for their station uniforms if they get soiled on EMS calls. So that was discussed for the board to consider. Getting new hoods, which are particulate, they have barriers so that they, the scope of the meeting was trying to prevent cancer and avoiding the members being exposed to the products of combustion when they get back from a call, or an EMS call being exposed to biological hazards. So these new hoods would protect them better than the old hoods from getting, cancer, skin cancer and things like that in their neck area, their ears, and their face. The hoods that we buy currently are $35. The new encapsulating hoods are about $100 a piece, so it's it's 3 times the price, but if it could save somebody from getting cancer down the road, we discussed purchasing them. So we did agree that that would be a very valid thing. They also discussed that they would like to see the spare engine and truck fully equipped and ready to go. Right now, they do have to switch over a defibrillator and some other tools and things, so we said that we would work on that. And the radio policy that I mentioned a few minutes ago was also discussed and will be implemented when we receive the new radios in a week or two. I provided the board with a proposal for 3 Knoxbox key secures. When we got the new rigs, we had the Knoxbox keys put in each of the rigs for the members to use, and we put it in the captain's car and ladder 16, so the officers had access to those keys. What we'd like to do now is buy 3 more for the new ladder truck that's coming. Would be for 1, and engine 29, which does not have one, and tower ladder 17, so that each of the rigs will have one of these Knoxbox keys to let the members get into buildings without having to break the doors or windows to get access, whether it's an emergency or it's an EMS call. Gives us access to the commercial buildings, or some residents have actually purchased Knox boxes to have access keys put in. So those would come to $2,701. I asked the board to consider approval of that. I had also gotten a quote for Dell computers. Several of our computers are running on Windows 7, which as of January 14th are no longer receiving Microsoft security updates or software updates. So I received a quote for $52,6747 for 3 desktop computers and 1 laptop computers, which will run on the new Microsoft. I assume it's Windows 10, I believe. I remind the board that I sent forward the Employee Assistance Program renewal from Westchester County for the years 2020 to 2024. Basically, the cost is $45 per employee. We consider that we have 77 employees. We have 74 uniform personnel, and then the treasurer, the secretary, and the maintenance person. So those 3 would be included for a total of 77 employees. It would be $3,465 per year. I would like to attend the PERMA conference, which is our workers' comp. They provide a lot of good information at that conference. It's up in Lake George. But our purchasing policy says if I'm going to use the credit card for a hotel room, I have to have prior board permission. So the seminar or the PERMA conference is in May 21st and 22nd. PERMA pays for the room for 1 night, but since it starts at 8 in the morning up at Lake George, I have to go up the afternoon before, so I'm asking permission to use the department credit card to pay for the room for the second night of the conference. Lieutenant David Stupple completed his FDNY First Line Supervisor Training Program yesterday. It's a 4-week program. All career fire officers are required to take it within 18 months of being promoted. And Tina Kapoor will be starting it on February 24th. And so she'll be going out to Randall's Island and down to the flip school.
You need to be commended for being able to get 2 lieutenants into flip school and one within 2 months of being appointed. That's quite an
Sometimes it can be
accomplishment.
difficult. The later in the year that you hire, they come out with a schedule in November, December, and that's when you start making your reservations. So I was able to get Lieutenant Stupple in, and then a lieutenant to be named later, reserve spot. I was able to do that, but the later in the year, all the classes for the year fill up, so you may actually have to wait till 2021 to get another lieutenant in. But it is early enough in the year, so if we do decide to promote, we should be able to get somebody in. Congratulations to Captain Ralph Stupple on his retirement on January 29th. After 31 years with the fire district, Captain Stupple was very instrumental in helping me in speccing out the new engines. He had done it before, and I was new to the process. So with the 3 new Pierce engines, he was very instrumental in helping me with that, and just a lot of other stuff as an administrator. He was very helpful to me. So I thank him for all his assistance and his service to the district for all that time. And actually, I'll mention, on December 1st, we had a second alarm fire. I was actually in the hospital with a broken hip that night. Captain Yazzo was handling the fire. The guys from Group 1 did a great job. So I just wanted to mention that. It was up on Grand Boulevard. Those guys did a great job that day. And Captain Stupple, 3 tours before he retired, had a fire in a attached townhouse. There's actually 28 townhouses attached, 4 units in each townhouse, and they're all truss, wood frame, and it had a lot of potential to be a really big fire, and his guys were able to keep that to a small fire, knock it down quickly with containing it to 1 unit. That was on January 15th, and that was Captain Stupple and his members in Group 3. So I just want to mention those are the 2 most recent fires we had. The guys did a great job. And I should also mention, Group 2 with Captain Dempsey had a cardiac arrest call where they responded, and a resident from town was down in full cardiac arrest. They assisted the Bronxville police and evac in doing CPR. I believe Bronxville police officers defibrillated the person. And the person, we actually got a phone call from the person who was in cardiac arrest about 2 weeks later. He was able to walk out of the hospital with very little or no deficit to his physical health. And he actually, I believe, came in to meet the guys that helped rescue him. And they're going to be recognized by the Bronxville Village Board. The Bronxville Police Chief told me at their February meeting, he asked if the guys could come down. So I contacted each of the members that were on the call. So they're going to attend the next Bronxville Village Board meeting to be recognized with EVAC and the police department on their basically a save of somebody's life. So it was Captain Dempsey and the members of Group 2. So
Very good.
that's the end of my report.
Okay, so following up, you just suggested, I would make a motion that we allow the chief to use the credit card to go to the PERMA conference and to book his hotel room via the credit card.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Keating, second, and that's a second. You'll be the second. I'll make the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now, Chief, but your Knox boxes. I would make a motion to approve the proposal dated January 23rd, 2020, to purchase various Knox box products from Knox, located at 1601 West Deer Valley Road, Phoenix, Arizona, for a cost of $2,701. As the chief mentioned, Knox boxes are just a unit that allows the fire department to get a key and open the door rather than break it down of a commercial building usually. So I would make that motion. Looking for a second.
I'll take a second.
Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have a bunch of business to get done on other things here. The chief is, you didn't mention the phone system, chief.
Okay, so-
I'll get it if you, because I have the motion here. The chief has been out working on this for quite some time, updating the phone system in the firehouses, not the 911 numbers that get answered by us, those get answered by Westchester County. These are business phones throughout the firehouses. So we have 5 firehouses, each of them have multiple phones. Headquarters has approximately 10 phones. It's about 30 individual lines, if I'm saying it correctly. And so he's been, for quite a while, he's been researching this proposal, and the phones have been something that we've been trying to wrestle down for years. He's taken the cost down a few $1,000s in the last year per month, and now this will hopefully take it down some more. So we're going to go to voice over IP phones, which are considered to be IP phones, which are now standard in most business practices. So I would make a motion to approve the proposal of January 28th, 2020 by Altus Business / Cablevision Lightpath with offices on 1 Court Square West, Long Island City, to replace the existing EFD phone lines, hardware, and fire headquarters and the 4 firehouses with high-speed internet connection for headquarters. There could be a dedicated 100 meg line for headquarters and routers for same. So can I get a second on that and discussion if you like?
I'll second that.
Chief, are you doing the station review for them?
For all the internet stuff, we're not at that point
No,
yet.
the station review for the phones.
They did already.
They
came
did it
by.
already?
Yeah, Altice came by and did
And
their-
they took into account the analog lines for the faxes and everything like that? We
Yep,
have one
yep,
fax, right? That's
yep.
still going to be online? We're still going to be using the fax line?
Yeah, we'll still have faxes. They're not going to be part of the IP phones. They would just do optimum voice lines for those.
Are they putting in their own switches?
They provide the switches for the
They're
IP phones, yeah.
Okay, so you're going to use their switches?
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll poll the board. Commissioner Keating?
Aye.
Commissioner Carl?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Raven?
I will say yes, although I do feel that we should have our own switches and not use theirs. But that's my own opinion.
We have the county switch as well. so-
Same even, the county switch even. I think we should have our own switches.
Okay, and I'll say aye. So that motion, you can tell them to put the phones in, which
Okay.
is great.
Yep.
The chief, we have a series of computers in the office that need to be upgraded. One is the chief's, one's the captain's computer, which is particularly old. Computer Lisa is using is particularly old. The chief's computer is not that old, but it's Windows 7. So the chief has reached out and got a proposal to basically upgrade 4 computers and three fixed computers and a laptop. The laptop is used for presentations in the firehouse when they do training. So let me read this proposal and we'll have a discussion. I propose the board authorize Chief Tween to purchase the following replacement Dell computers, monitors, and software. The business office, 1 computer, dual monitors, mouse, keyboard. Fire chief's office, computer, dual monitors, mouse, keyboard. Captain's office, 1 computer, dual monitors, mouse, keyboard, 1 laptop for general use at fire headquarters. Each machine will be required a Microsoft Office license, and it's going to have Windows Pro on it, but I think they come with that. And malware software should be installed if needed. The chief will comply with the procurement policies and use approved vendors or on the state contract. So therefore, we don't need the exact invoice, although you got an invoice. It's off a state contract, so we don't have to, and we'll follow our procurement policies, and we'll let the chief secure those machines, would be my hope. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, Chief, the computers that are being cycled down, where are they starting and where are they ending?
So my computer, which is 4 years old, is going to go into the maintenance department for Tim. Tim's computer won't even turn on right now, so his computer is completely shot. It's not just an upgrade at this point, it's a failure of the computer.
But that only happened in the last week or so.
Month, yeah.
Okay.
So, so that computer is going to be repurposed over there. The other computers are all 10 years old. We're just going to remove the hard drives and discard the computers for Lisa, the captains, and then the well, we'll probably keep the laptop, just to use in-house. Maybe we'll just make it so it won't go on the internet.
So before your computer goes to Tim, what measures are we taking to make sure any sensitive information is taken off of it?
So when we upgrade it to Windows 10, that's going to wipe it clean. The gentleman from Dell, because I was asking him, look, we want to upgrade one of these computers, and he says, when you do, he goes, you got to save everything and, put it on a hard drive or on a thumb drive, that when you install Windows 10, it's going to be a brand-new computer. There's going to be no documents on it for Tim, and then the other computers will be brand new.
But will they be erased or will they just not be accessible?
He said it's going to be erased. He said it's going to be like a brand-new computer when you
You're gonna format
install
the-
the new operating system.
You're going to format the hard drive. When you put Windows 10 in, you're reformatting the hard. When you put Windows 10 in, you have an option to keep the data or reformat the hard
Yeah,
drive.
we would,
You would go with the
Lose the data,
reformatting, yeah.
So then all of your sensitive information on your computer that you have now.
Yes.
You are going to remove a copy of it?
yeah, I'll
right?
save it to, I have a 64 gigabit thumb drive. I'm going to save all my documents onto there and load them onto my new computer.
But hopefully, the chief is saving all his documents to our Google Drive and not his computer. Our Google Drive allows you to save documents securely on the Google Drive.
Correct, but I can almost guarantee you that that is not what's happening. I'm sure everybody's saving stuff to the local drive on their computers, whether it's the captain's office or otherwise. It's impossible to assume that everything that is created on every computer is saved to the Google Drive. It's
Well,
no way.
Some
Maybe
of
not.
it, Lisa's computer was designed so that whenever she saved the document, it saved it on the Google Drive.
Right, but there's still ability to save it locally.
Sure,
Which
yes.
is a security measure that governments have removed now, so that you don't have that happening.
Okay.
So, what about our protection firewall? We're using the county firewall for our
Yeah, the
office?
router from the county has a firewall in it. As far as antivirus, Jamie says when she got her laptop, we can add 4 more users. So she has antivirus on her laptop that allows us to have 5 users. So these new computers will be
Right.
assigned that same antivirus.
But you don't need to buy antivirus protection anymore, because if you use Windows Defender, it comes with, it's resident in Microsoft 10, Windows Defender. And Windows Defender, if it's always turned on to automatic updates, you don't need to go out and buy Norton or any of the other over-the-counter virus protection. Just use Microsoft Windows Defender and keep your updates.
I have 365, I believe.
Your 365 is Microsoft Office, but the Office is your business Office suite. The operating system is Windows 10. Windows 10 is what comes with Microsoft Defender. And that's where the protection is. It's automatically in there.
Is it scanning documents when you bring them over?
Sure it is.
Make sure. Because
Okay.
if you're bringing old viruses or malware from your old
Right, right,
computer
right.
onto a new system, what are we
Okay.
really doing? We're behind the firewall while all this is happening.
Right, but
So
you
it's
would,
not going to protect you from that. But if we've received any documentation from an office or a vendor who doesn't know that the document is infected,
Right, right.
it may not even indicating to us that it's infected, but it's receiving information from inside the computer, sending it out, and we wouldn't even know.
Okay,
Because we don't have an IT director, which is what we need. We need somebody who's going to be in charge of all this and it not be the chief, and make sure that we're being secure. We have over $30 million in some points in our banks, and we have nobody making sure that we're secure. We're just going off of whatever the board happens to think is appropriate at the time. I think we need a third party. We say
Well,
it again. That's what we need. We need a consultant.
I think what we need to have is commissioners to get a better understanding of our system. And this is just, as somebody who monitors the system, I can see how many documents people save on their Google
That's
Drive.
a problem. You should not be monitoring. It should be a third party.
Okay, so you can see how many, you can't see the email document, what's in the email, but you can see on the user account how many times someone has saved a document to the drive and how much in their fire district drive have they stored. And so I think, looking at like your data, you've never saved a document to the drive.
That's not true. What's the point of investigating that information? What is the point of investigating whether or not somebody is accessing documents?
Oh, no, you're looking at how much data is in each of it's their silos. Your user account is a silo.
That's
So
not
you
my
can see
question.
how
My
much
question
data
what
is in the silo.
point? What is the point?
Because you want to make sure the system's operating
Well,
properly.
you know it's operating properly. Jamie and Lisa and the chief use it every day as part of their 9 to 5 jobs, so we know
Yeah,
it's
well,
operating.
Oh, let's just say I know that we are not utilizing the system to its maximum, because when I look at who is storing documents on the computer, I store a lot of documents, the chief stores a lot of documents, Jamie stores a lot of documents, Lisa stores a lot of documents. By and large, I sent out an email this week explaining a tutorial or a podcast showing you how to use the Google Drive. It's very intuitive. It's there. It's a really cutting-edge tool we have, and it's just helpful if people were to watch those podcasts and learn how to use Google Drive. You would find documents like, take this meeting right now, we're having right now. All the documents we're talking about today, whether it's the contract for the phone company, whether it's the, whatever document we have here today, is in the board meeting folder for today's meeting, on the Google Drive, which we all have access to. It's there.
So what?
So
I don't understand what your point is.
my point is, I don't think people are going there and reading those documents.
But we get those documents, however we access documents is our own personal prerogative.
Okay.
My question is, what is the point of you having to monitor how well other people are using the system?
Because it's trying to improve people's use. It's just trying to get people to
Monitoring
understand.
their use doesn't improve their use. It's more like you're trying to get information for your own education about who's doing what and looking to see what they are doing.
Well, I disagree. I think it's that we have a computer system that we spend. Okay, take the town of Eastchester. It spends $250,000 a year on computers. We spend probably $12,000 a year on IT. On our systems, under $20,000 a year. And I'll argue we have a better computer system, more accessible, more flexible, more secure than almost anyone. It is. We have dual verification on everybody who signs in. When you sign in, you get that little thing saying, please, put the Google code in. It's a very secure system. It's not a loose system.
You can't certify that our Google Cloud document server is only being accessed by people who are in this district. You can't.
Sure you can.
No, you can't.
It gives you an IP address and everybody logs in.
There's
You can
an
look
option for Google to enter our cloud if they had to. There is no way to certify that. And now, if you may know, Google has started to move a lot of its cloud service out of the United States, which may include our documents.
Yeah, well, so is Amazon, I'm sure, and so is Microsoft, and
Right,
so
which
is...
is why government should not be using cloud-based services. They should
Okay.
be using
And,
brick-and-mortar servers.
yeah, I think we're cutting edge, and I think that if you want to know where somebody logged in from, you can actually track down the IP address of where they logged in from. That's capable in our system.
Why did we need that information?
I'm just saying
Where a
it's capable.
commissioner logs in from.
I'm telling you, the IP address is in their suite
Right,
of
but
stuff.
my concern is, why do we need to know where a commissioner logs in from?
You just asked the question whether you could know where they logged in from. I'm telling you, you can.
Okay.
I didn't ask that question.
Well, I'm not worried about whether commissioners log in or not, but I am worried about third parties, especially malfeasant third parties, because I heard some, not fire districts that I've heard, but I've heard some municipalities, mostly in the West Coast, have been hacked and then held to ransom. Are we
Anybody can be
protected
hacked.
against that?
You got Jeff Bezos' personal computer got hacked. So when he
Well-
can get hacked, the whole world can get hacked.
Right, because people are after money, and they're holding people up for ransom. Are we protected, is our system protected against that?
We have a very secured system that requires dual verification to come in. Everybody now needs dual verification to get in.
That's only for things that are on Google Drive. We're not protected otherwise to the point where I think anyone feels comfortable. We should have somebody come in and do a study and see where we are. We should be getting close to FedRAMP certified as we possibly can because we are a government. We have sensitive information. If I go onto the Google Drive, there's sensitive information on there. It shouldn't be there, but it's there.
It has to be there. That's where your record management system is.
Where's our record management policy?
What's in the drive? It's on
No,
Google Drive under
Where is our record
policies.
management policy? What do we have? What is our policy? Who's a record management officer?
Your record management officer is your secretary of the fire district. That's how it works.
Is she appointed to that? Does she know that?
Well, every fire district secretary under New York State town law is the record management officer.
Yeah. They have to
So
still be
let's move
advised
on a
of
little
that.
bit here.
I don't think
So
there's
I'm
a
looking
question
for a
of it. I
second.
think there's this real safety concern with the fire district.
Okay.
We have a lot of money.
Can I get a second on buying the computers from somebody?
I'll second that.
I'll make the motion. It's seconded by Mr. Keating, and I'll poll the board. Commissioner Keating?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Rabin?
No.
And I'll say aye. Motion carried. Okay. The Village of Bronxville is going to hold its election this year on March 18th, which is, as they say in Ireland, the cure. Being St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, which is a Tuesday, so the village holds its election on the Wednesday. Their hours for the election are 6 to 9 at night. They're requesting to use the Bronxville Firehouse. So I'd like to make a motion that we allow the Village of Bronxville has requested to use the Bronxville Firehouse for its election, for its polling place. The annual election to be held on Wednesday, March 18th, between 6 and 9. Motion to allow the Village of Bronxville and Westchester County to use the Bronxville Fire Station on March 18th. So I'll make that motion. Look for a second.
I'll second it.
And Paul, I'll poll the board.
Discussion, did we receive this request in writing?
I got an email.
Okay.
Well-
They didn't contact the chief, which every other district has done.
I have a unique relationship with the Village of Bronxville, so they contacted me and asked me.
And were they going to be providing insurance?
Well, we could ask them for a letter of insurance.
Wouldn't we automatically be doing that? Didn't we do that with the school?
Well, we'll get a letter of insurance from
We
them
don't
or
do the
Westchester
school
County.
election?
When we did. We did. We used to have them in Chester Heights, and we moved them out because
Oh,
of construction.
okay. Yeah, I was talking Bronxville specifically. Usually, the Board of Elections, once a year, will send us a letter asking permission for the primaries and the general election.
Right.
And, we give it to the board to approve, and they would send normally a liability letter.
So can you reach out, this election's being run by Westchester County Board of
Okay.
Elections. Can you reach out to Westchester County Board of Election and get that
Yep.
letter?
Isn't there a village clerk in Bronxville?
I'm sure there
So the
is.
village clerk should be doing that work, not you.
Well, let the chief do it, it's perfectly fine. We're in the Village of Bronxville's room. They let us use this room every year. They're very helpful to us. So I think the chief can make a phone call when they're asking us to help him out. I'll poll the board. Commissioner Keating? Commissioner
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Raven?
No.
And I'll say aye, motion carried. Let's go to the next item.
Why aren't they using this building?
Because they turned the election over to the Westchester County Board of Elections, and they don't want it here. Okay, we received...
Wasn't our fire election here?
Yes.
So does that mean we're not going to have a fire election here in December?
No, we'll have the fire election here in December because the fire election is run by the fire district, not the Westchester County Board of Elections. It's so,
Seems unusual.
well, maybe unusual, that's the way it works. We're running the election. The Village of Bronxville is actually doing this to save money. So it's their idea to save money is to do this. So, because they can have the county do it, they realized other municipalities are letting the county do
Vote
it.
on that. Next item, please.
Next item. We received some communications this month, and I just want to mention that. We've received 2 communications, one via the lawyer, one via the union president. The board discussed those communications, and we'll get back to the union president to hopefully, have this work out. So that's where those are. The next discussion is on staffing. We are currently, we had Captain, as the chief said, Captain Stupple retire, and we wish him well in his retirement. And so the question is, do we promote, not promote, do we not hire for the class? I know this has been socialized, but some of the commissioners, and so I just want to bring this up for a short discussion, as we have a lot of agenda items to move on to here. So I think the idea would be we're not going to participate in this current academy class. Is that correct? Or
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, I'm in favor of waiting,
Okay, I'm in
We
favor of
have a
waiting.
need for it.
so.
Yeah, and I think,
What's the manpower right now?
We're short 5 people if you include the 2 long-term injuries. One person's on restricted duty, the other person is out on sick leave. They've both been off the line for over a year, and we've had 3 retirements. Lieutenant Ranalone, who we promoted to lieutenant, so which left us short a firefighter position. Lieutenant Grogan, who we also promoted to lieutenant, so that left us short a firefighter position, and now Captain Stupple. So as far as the staffing, we're short as far as people on the rigs, 5 people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I would be in favor of hiring then in this class because we just negotiated a contract where we actually gave some givebacks, so not givebacks, but we gave something to the union so that we could get something from them, which was that we are going to have reduced cost with the new firefighters by stretching out their payments. The Tier 6 pension costs are less, their medical costs will be less, so it doesn't make sense not.
Salaries will be less.
Much less.
Well, we had a,
And
Jamie,
stretched over
we
6
looked at
years
the
instead of
10-year
5.
history of whether the number, Mr. Keating requested that we look at the 10-year history of the fire department, membership, number of people working versus the overtime budget, and the correlation is not there. There's no correlation that if we hire more people, our costs go down. And there's a strong argument to be made that if we pay existing firefighters overtime, because healthcare costs are approaching $30,000 a person, a family member plan, it would cost us $30,000 a year for a fireman for medical benefits, that there's a strong argument to be made that we, and if you're going to be giving them health care for till they're 80 years old, that it's quite expensive.
Until they're 80 years old.
Well, you're giving them to them for life. Their contract.
They have that benefit already prior to the contract's negotiation.
Well,
till
certain,
65.
not all of them. Not all of them. Only certain of them did. So
Anyone who retired up to that point had it, and anybody who was retiring moving forward expected it. I don't know, and first of all, 80 years old is just presumptuous. That doesn't even make sense. Be till 65, till anybody went Medicare Prime. That goes for anybody in the public sector.
still costs us money, Medicare Prime.
Costs us money no matter what.
Right. So
But now, new hirees will be paying more into their health care, fixing a huge error.
what's that?
You can pull the vote when we're done having the discussion.
I'm not.
And second of all, I think there is a case to be made that we should be looking to hire around 3 firemen to fill these positions. There's one thing to have a fireman come in because overtime is cheaper. It's another thing to not have fresh people on the force to be able to actually work and add to the development of the district. It is a young person's job, and we were trying our best for years to hold on to older employees who are above the age of 50 to do physical work that we know is very difficult and dangerous, and then they go out sick, and then we complain that they're using their sick time. That's my piece. And I agree with Commissioner Roach 100%. I think that we should hire.
so-
We should ask the chief what he thinks.
But Chief has already told us.
We were done. So in terms of discussion, I'm finished with discussing it. Are you?
I'm finished with discussing it.
Commissioner Rabin, are you finished?
I'll never be finished until we hire.
Okay.
For purposes of voting on it today, are you finished or not?
Well, we don't have
pull
to
the
make a
board if
vote
you
on it
choose to.
unless there's a desire, a motion to send people to the academy.
I don't have that.
I don't have a
right now.
desire to send people to the academy.
Given the data.
Right, so we're not
Given
expending
that,
public funds.
in fact, even with the less numbers, we're still operating at a higher staff in numbers than we were 8 years ago, 9 years.
And the overtime was higher than.
And this will
The
happen as...
overtime was, in 2018, we
The
had.
form you gave me, the overtime is the lowest.
sorry, I wasn't
The
finished.
overtime, the
If I
form
can
that you
just- if I
gave me
can just-
before
if I can just
indicated the
finish.
overtime had gone down.
Okay, so we actually sampled, which we had given to you. In 2018, the number in overtime was identical to 2010, and the staff at that time was 69, as opposed to 76 in 2018. She had 7 more firefighters, and the overtime was identical.
Okay. And do you know what happened in 2018? Chief, would you like to indicate what happened in the winter of 2018?
You just take the vote.
Okay,
Huge influenza breakout in the force,
all right.
Right?
We had guys going out with the flu almost weekly because of a huge
The average
outbreak.
of overtime in the last decade is $750,000, and we have approximately 3 to 8 fires per year.
I would dispute that, but.
Okay.
I think it's more
I'm
like
We
happy
put
to-
out a
Chief, I'm happy to accept your number, whatever the number is.
12 to 20.
Okay, 12 to
Couple a
20,
month,
12
where
to
we stretch
20.
hose lines and put a fire.
Right. I think we have the best firefighters around. However, it's almost $800,000 per year and 8 fires.
And
to
what
12
about
to 20?
communities that are around us that are fighting fires?
Well, we had that discussion. I asked you about that earlier, and I discussed.
Steve, we'll have an opportunity for you down the road.
But you can vote on it now.
We're not voting on it, we're just moving on.
We're talking about 8 fires. What about all the medicals we do? We're just being honored in this town regarding what we do. We just don't do fires.
We're not-
And does your 10-year study include how the,
We're just
Steve,
looking,
Steve, we're just
looking
talking
at it.
amongst
I'm
ourselves.
just telling you,
looking
your
at it.
10-year study has to include the new construction in town. Let's not act like this town hasn't grown. Look what's going on in Tuckahoe, Bronxville, everywhere
Yeah,
else. Let's not live in a vacuum and just look at
Agree-
overtime as this much
Agreed, but
money.
we also want to give the volunteers an opportunity to come also. And they
Right,
haven't
this is
had
a-
that opportunity.
This is right, this,
Yes?
yeah.
Opportunity, Tommy. Tell them you want to get involved.
Okay, this is not your opportunity. Let's
We-
go,
wanted to get involved, but the Senate guy don't want us to.
We do want to hear from the volunteers.
I'm sure you do.
but this is a conversation about one short period of time. This is not the last time somebody is going to be doing hiring in the
So-
fire
so
district.
Let's just move on.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, so we'll move on to the next
Thank you,
topic.
Jamie.
Discussion on the board members acquiring technology tools to conduct board business. So, Mr. Keating has brought up the fact, and I think it's a very good point, that he's uncomfortable using his own laptop or cell phone to communicate fire district business using his own personal device. And I think it's and he's coming from a very structured corporate world, and one of those places I came from. I don't have my fire district communications on my active phone. I keep it on actually, I don't even have when I get on the internet, I don't have a SIM card there. But I use just an old phone that I use to hold my fire district stuff on. So he would like and I think it's a good idea and it's a good discussion, for the board to purchase laptops for the board members and smartphones for the board members. And this gets into a bigger discussion because the chief would like us to get new smart tablets for all the rigs, iPads, basically. And part of that discussion was yesterday with the chief that the networks now, like AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, all have these first responder networks that are different than your general cell phone network. And so we're currently using, for the few cell phones we have, we're currently using Sprint, which was Nextel, which was the old talk-around system, which is legacy. So just like we upgraded our telephones in all the firehouses, we can upgrade into a package where we get everybody on board with a current plan. We've got a legacy plan we've been just renewing for years. So I don't think we have the information at this meeting because the chief has to figure out which plan is the most reasonable plan for us to be part of, which one offers first responders the best network. I noticed just Googling last night that T-Mobile has one, AT has one, and Verizon has one of these, quote, first responder plans, and some of them offer group packages. So I would say we should authorize the chief to get the data and come back to us at next month's meeting to tell us what laptops we need. I have my phone situation solved with this. I don't have, so I don't really need a third phone. I'm carrying two as it is.
It would be prudent for you to do it.
I could get a new phone. I don't like Apple.
But what would be included in a first responder laptop?
Well, the ones that go in the rigs, their networks are arguing that when there's a crisis happens and the cell phone towers are jammed up, you are going to have premium access not to lose your communications. Okay. That's their argument, right, Chief?
Yeah, I believe it's AT&T has FirstNet, so it's supposed to be separate from the general population data network. So if the guys need to look something up on their tablet in the rig, like with all the press being there, if it's a big emergency, a lot of times the cell sites go down or overwhelmed where you can't get a signal or the data doesn't work. So this is just reserved specifically for first responders, police, fire, and EMS.
Basically to get online.
Yeah, to be able to use data,
But it
yeah.
has nothing to do with phone communications or radio communications? Or
Correct.
does it?
Yeah, I have to look into it more. I just know the data aspect of it. I'm not sure about the cell telephone end of it for the cell phones.
I mean, I'm absolutely fine with that for the apparatus, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as a laptop or a cell phone for commissioners, if it really doesn't give us access to the radio communications, it doesn't really.
Well, you can get access to the radio communications now. The chief, and that's a very good point. I have Jerry Napolitano, who was a Motorola person, provided me with a scanner type thing, and I could listen to the calls. And you can buy a Radio Shack scanner to listen to calls if you wanted to, too. But it's not a bad, I mean, if your wife will put up with it, it's not a bad thing to hear the phone traffic, the radio traffic, because it gives you a sense of the department much better than the chief's report of how they're responding, how quick they get there. I mean, between EVAC and the fire department, if you have a medical emergency in town, somebody's getting to you really, really quick. I mean, our response time in this town for residents who have an issue is fast, really fast. It's like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, sometimes 2 minutes, really quick. And EVAC monitors the police calls. And so they're usually rolling as they're hearing the police calls come in. So they're, like they'll hear a call, and they'll know the police are going there, and they'll start going into that scene before they get dispatched. So they're really fast. So yeah, I mean, it's very, very good. So listening to the calls is not a bad idea, and we could set you up with that, I'm sure, right, Chief?
I believe Commissioner Roche has a pager, so he'll hear the dispatch of the call, but not the back and forth
Back
of
and
the
forth is what
apparatus.
tells you when the guy's on scene and all that stuff.
That's going to change when we go to the tactical channels, the fireground channels. You're no longer going to receive what's going on at the scene. You're only going to hear the rigs talking to the dispatchers like they're responding, they're on scene, and then they'll be operating on the tactical channel.
That could be a few years.
So it could be
Chief,
a
did
few
you talk
weeks.
to Altice about if they have any opportunities? Because they started to sell telecommunications program for mobile phones.
I have not looked into it. I was going to do it for next
Maybe
month's
talk
meeting.
to
Okay.
Ms.
Altice.
O'Brien and see if there's something that she can
Okay.
possibly weave in.
Okay, so if the chief can task somebody
Yep.
with figuring out what's the best, because if we know what net we're going to be on, we can get the right laptops for the apparatus, and we need six or seven apparatus need those laptops.
Yeah, we'd need 7 for the captain's car and the 6 in-service rigs.
Okay, the next
As
item.
far as laptops and phones, Chief, if you're going to look into that for the board, if that's what they want to do eventually, we're going to need to have administrative programming put on it that allows remotely for that apparatus to be shut down. If it's lost, if it's damaged, if it's stolen,
Right,
or if a
right.
commissioner chooses not to give it back.
Okay.
So that's going to have to be put on there, some kind of
Make sure
remote
everybody gives them
management
back.
service.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Make sure everybody gives them back. They'll be able to hand it in, and say
Yes.
thank you
Right.
on the last day.
Right. So the next item up is Station 4. As everybody knows, we've been doing a lot of work on Station 4. We had a contract to do work there for the last couple of years. There's been a dispute over his final payments and his punch list.
I'm so sorry, Dennis. I know you moved on, but did we vote on this board resolution? Or
No,
we
it's not,
put it off?
we're just authorizing the chief to go and get the quotes. We're not buying anything until next,
You can, if you want.
we can, is everybody in agreement that?
No, I just, because you gave me
You're
this thing
following
to
the
keep track
roadmap.
of, and I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
say no vote. All right.
Yeah, but everybody's comfortable having the chief do some research and come back to us, and if we decide next month, we can do it, we do it. Is that fair for everyone?
Yeah, we'd like to see the phones, though, for the commissioners had earlier.
He has to figure out what network we're on to do that, okay? So we can authorize the chief to purchase under state contract, are they under state contract?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is, yeah.
We can authorize the chief under state contract to purchase the phones that we need now, and he can poll the commissioners to see who thinks they need a phone.
I think that's good.
The only
you
thing
also
I would
need to-
recommend with that is that it should be Android and not iPhone, even though I'm an iPhone user myself. The iPhones are not able to be remotely shut down or anything without some serious work, so, and I think the state contract is going to be more about Android phones anyway.
Well, if they log on to our network,
Yeah, yeah.
I prefer.
no, there's a point there.
Yeah,
If
but-
you log on to our network and you use your device and you go to Google Drive and you log into your cell phone with Google Drive onto our network, the administrator has the ability to wipe your phone remotely. There's a feature that you can say wipe phone and it wipes the phone if you're logged on with Google Drive using our Google
Phones have
Drive.
some security, too.
Yeah, I would imagine we would just call the vendor, Apple, Verizon, whoever it is, and
And lock
say,
the
turn
phone.
off that account, you
Yes.
know, and I would assume that would,
Doesn't work like that.
No?
And then also the iPhones require you, in order to have an iTunes account as part of the setup, and commissioners aren't going to have iTunes accounts attached to their Gmail accounts, so there's a little bit more to it.
Okay.
When it comes to
I'll
it
look
than
into
that.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so we have this, so should we make a motion to authorize the chief to buy these phones?
I think so.
I'll make the motion that he, provided he stays within our purchasing limits and our procurement policy, and that he's authorized to buy the commissioner's phones.
Okay.
And the treasurer as well. The treasurer believes she needs a phone as well. And we'll move on for if Lisa or,
But if we can,
currently, the fire prevention
Yeah,
has a phone.
absolutely. I gotta call the companies and get the research
I think the
done.
iPhone
So-
actually.
And you have the
and there's a
captain's.
whole bunch about the iPhone.
The
They
captain's
have a-
phone
they have
is
get
prehistoric,
Information.
Yeah, the captains and the 2 lieutenants' phones.
or prehistoric.
I think maybe we should hold off and just have them do some research and come back with a proposal.
So you can keep me out of this hole.
I think voting on it now.
Why don't we just wait a month and get a proposal and get everything down, one-shot deal?
That's also fine, too.
Yeah, it's cleaner that way. Okay. So now, the next item of business is Station 4. We met with the contractor, and we have a disputed amount to be paid. There's some paint work in the front of the building that was defective. It can't be cured this time of year. You have to wait till springtime. This dispute has been outstanding for 6 months or so. So as a show of good faith to him, and he seems he wants to work with us to redo the front of the building, of his balance due, I would make a motion that we approve the partial payment to JGB Construction, 39 Long Ridge Road, excuse me, Bedford, New York, in the amount of $30,000. The board is seeking BJB's help in resolving the quality of the painting to the southern surface. Does somebody want to second that or discussion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
And Paul, I'll call the board. Commissioner Keating?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. Mr. Rabin?
No.
And I'll say aye. So that's passed. Okay, we have another item to do. And also with Station 4. Station 4 has a drainage issue with the firehouse. The basement is constantly flooding, and we're redoing the floor. Part of redoing the floor of that firehouse is we have to figure out how to fix the drainage. We've received a proposal from Universal Engineering Services to design a drainage plan for Station 4 in the amount of $9,500 plus incidental fees associated with the project. So I would look for a motion to retain, the proposal is dated December 12th. I would look for a motion to execute this agreement with Universal Engineering Services, who is currently the contractor
I'll give
trying
you
to do
that
the floor.
motion.
What's that?
I'll give you that motion.
That's Tom, and a second. I'll second it, Dennis, and I'll poll the board. Commissioner Keating?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And Mr. Rabin?
Aye.
And I'll say aye. Okay, moving on to the next item. In that same firehouse, the basement is, we put up an obstacle course years ago for the firemen to go through confined space training, which at the time was sure was a very good idea, but when you're redoing the building, that obstacle course has to come out. Also, it's been flooding, and the basement is being used as basically a dumpster. There's a lot of stuff down there that doesn't need to be there, that should be discarded. It's molded and it needs to be thrown away. So the Tim Dalton, our maintenance man, has been out securing quotes, and he's gotten, this is the lowest quote he got, to remove the oil burner, which we have a 1920s or 30s massive oil burner that has not been working. It's going to be decommissioned. We're going to go to gas when we're allowed to. And so we have a quote to remove the oil burner and to clear the basement out, but not the timbers that hold up the floor. So I would look for a motion to approve the proposal dated January 24, 2020 by Premier Construction, 487 Main Street, Suite 155, Uncasco, New York, to remove the steam boiler, obstacle course in the basement, refuge, at a cost of $3,654 plus carting fees. Carting fees are estimated to cost $2,500. So Anybody want to make that motion? And Mr. Keating, and a second?
I had a question, was that the lowest proposal?
That was the
Because when you
lowest
add
one.
them together, isn't it, we're adding those together from the same vendor, right? And they were
Yep.
two separate proposals.
Yep, and the third
So
proposal...
is that the lowest proposal we
Yes, because
received?
the other guy didn't include the oil burner in his pricing.
And this guy does include the oil burner?
Yes.
But not the oil tank?
Not the oil tank, that's next.
Right, okay.
So you said second that, and I'll poll the board. Commissioner Keating?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Raven?
Aye.
And I'll say aye.
And who's second?
And second, it was Paul, and it was Keating first. Okay, moving on to that same firehouse. I'm looking for a motion to authorize the chief to enter an agreement to have the 1,000-gallon oil tank removed from the basement of Station 4, provided the chief has secured a third quote. The cost is below the amount required for an RFP. Currently, we have two quotes have been secured from New York State DEC licensed firms to remove this, and a third quote is pending. We don't have the quote in hand yet, but I know from the other two quotes, it's within our striking distance of the third one. If it comes in cheaper, the chief can execute the third one. I'm not going to disclose what the first two are because it wouldn't be fair to the third vendor, to those two vendors. So we'll just let the chief, when he gets the third quote, and actually, if we can't get a third quote, we should just let him go with two because it's a very limited universe of people who take out oil burners.
Right.
Oil tanks. So we should modify that to two. We hopefully gets a third quote. So can I get a motion on
And
that?
certainly specify it's indoors and not buried.
They're
What's
aware,
indoors?
they came down and scoped out the project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot
vendors so
cheaper.
far,
It's a lot less excavating, less soil contamination.
It's indoor and buried, yeah. It's a massive,
It's
this is
in a vault
big-
of sand, so
Yeah.
they'll remove the wall, they'll remove the sand and get everything out of there, to, you know,
It has to go.
cut up the tank.
I'll make that motion.
Tom, in a second.
I'll second that.
Yeah, this oil tank is offensive to anyone who looks at it. So I'll poll the board.
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aye.
I would say aye, but I would also ask that the chief report on the quotes at the next
Sure.
meeting.
Okay, and I'll say aye. The next one is a renewal of, we have a program, the chief mentioned in his report, an EAP program, which is an employee assistant program. It's basically a human resources department that the county provides us for $45 a year to handle things like if a family member or a fireman is having an issue with any of those issues in life that come up for people when they have struggles or alcohol, drugs, family matters. It's full counseling for those services. It does get used time to time. We think it's 100% confidential. We don't know what's going on there. We never get any communications back. Incidentally, I think the union president from time to time has mentioned that this is a good program. We don't know who's going there, but for $45 an employee per year, it's an excellent service for the county to provide. The biggest problem with this is the document they give you to fill out to sign up for this program is extensive. So that's pretty much filled out. We have to get it notarized and hand back. So I'd look for a motion to accept the proposal. It's a 5-year deal. The term for the agreement is from January 1st, 2020, December 31st, 2024. Cost per employee is $45. The first year is fixed because they know how many employees we have, $3,465 for 77 employees. It'll adjust annually. Who would like to make the
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
Tom, a second.
I'll second it.
Keating. Mr. Keating?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll say aye. So that IAP is done.
5 ayes?
5 ayes. Okay. On another matter, we have a fireman, whose I believe is badge number 146, Chief?
Well, I have to hear what you say next.
Okay. Who is applied, well, I thought you would know this. Applied for 207A, it appealed to 207A status from the
Yes.
board. It's been there's been some time outstanding. So I would offer a motion that the board reject the 207A status appeal pending, pending if we receive additional information from that fireman or his counsel between now and February 14th, we will review this decision. But in lieu of that, the board would be denying badge number 146 his 207 appeal. And if he responds back by February 14th, we'll open that denial up. And I'd look for a motion on that.
Make that motion.
And that's Keating. And a second?
Second.
And I'll poll the board.
Aye.
Aye.
Tom?
Abstain.
No.
And I'll say aye. Okay. So, now, we have a discussion to do on new members, drainage. We have a conference room. Currently, the chief has an office and an annex. I'll call it an annex, an office and an annex, depending, I guess,
The big office and the little office.
big office and a little office. So the idea would be that we take the little office, we make available so commissioners can use it.
Want the chief to have the
And that way the treasurer or the secretary could put documents in that room, or meeting minutes or bills, and then we can access that room to use for use. The chief will probably concede he doesn't need both offices. So I'm just mentioning it. I don't think we need a board resolution. Does anybody have any discussion or comments?
Yeah, I think we should knock the wall down and increase the office space for the 2 part-time employees and those files. I don't think commissioners need to have an office on site where they can be there every day.
Well, I think that's a good idea to model that room, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime in the next little bit. So while we're focusing on Station 4, and we have to do this floor in Station 3. So that's a good idea, but I don't think it'll happen today. So in the interim.
That's my opinion. I don't think commissioners should have a steady office in any of the firehouses.
Okay, you have that opinion.
Why?
Because you don't work there. They do. That's why. Chief is the chief administrative officer for all the employees of the fire department. He answers to the board for policy. The chief is the CEO. We should not have somebody else there who is able to influence him or spend time over his shoulder while he does his job. It should be just him. And an assistant
It may
chief.
help you do your job better.
I think that's a good point. I think under town law, I think it's 176-something, that no fire commissioner can interfere with a chief when he's on duty. And I think the boards in the past have been pretty good about not doing that. Years ago, there was a significant problem in 2014 on Willow Avenue Fire, where that did arise. 2004, not 2014, December 17th, maybe. But, yeah, I don't think we've had that problem in a number of years, and I don't anticipate us having that problem. And if the chief does have anybody influencing him, he should just tell the board.
Exactly. And it might be nice for the part-time employees to have their own offices also.
Yeah.
Something to look at.
Right, so we renewed the IIP, we paid the bills. Now, the next topic I'm going to bring up, and I hope this doesn't touch too many chords, but we should listen to the discussion before we go to conclusions, is about the volunteers. And I think there's a willingness on the board, and I'd like to get the board's idea of, I'm missing a folder. Where do we stand with volunteers? In other words, there's a desire by some board members to try to get a volunteer department. And that may be a good idea. And I'd like to get other board members' input on whether we should try to resurrect a new volunteer effort, but I mean a brand-new volunteer effort. I mean, right now, the Benevolent has somewhere between, I'll call it $6 and $7 million in that fund that could be used as a marketing tool to bring in volunteers, because they automatically become a member of the Benevolent, and therefore, it could be very attractive to people to become a volunteer if they could become a member of that Benevolent with that kind of pool of assets to, get stuff done for those folks, the new Corps. So is there a desire, and I'll ask each board member, is there a desire to go down that road and forget what the history was? Is there a desire to start a volunteer effort? Stu, do you have any opinion there?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're asking. You're talking about cutting off all the older volunteers and starting a new effort?
I'm saying that the older volunteers, because you said earlier it's a young man's game, and I don't agree with that 100%, because we have firemen who are, 64 years old that could probably outrun me around the track. It's not saying much by a lot. And we have some guys who are approaching mandatory retirement age that could outrun the 24-year-olds around the track. So I don't, through
It's a
age,
factor when they want to volunteer for something, in any capacity,
Right.
with respect to volunteers.
Right.
So that's just a,
yeah, so.
one of my,
the-
the guys want to volunteer.
The idea is,
Give it a
should we
volunteer.
resurrect the concept of going and starting a volunteer effort, a recruitment effort that the department organizes, the department is, we've tried it the other way for years, it didn't happen. I'm just saying a new approach. Would you be open for a new approach to doing this?
I don't know. Mr. Vichy, is there any update that you have
No,
for
we're not
us?
asking
Hold on
Mr.
one second.
I'm not asking
Hold on.
Mr. Vichy.
I'm just asking you a question real, before you come to the podium. Was there any update that you were going to have for this board, because it's now January? Have you heard anything? Zero? Nothing? Okay, that's all I need to know. Here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that we modify the stand-down order, and we allow the current volunteers to assist the department in trying to make inroads with this new discovery law that we have. And we start bringing the men and the women of that department in to start polling the people who are at fire scenes and getting evidence for us in those instances where fire issues turn criminal and we have overlooked or not had time to both be administrators, firefighters, and hazardous protectors. We could use the volunteers that we have right now to help us do that. Some of them show up to fire scenes anyway, even though they're not required to.
Well,
I think that's a good way, that's a good first step.
We can talk about the step of how we do it. The threshold question is, do we want, it sounds like you want to go down this road.
As long as it includes people who are already volunteers.
He's not excluding anybody.
I'm not excluding anybody.
Okay, fine.
No, it's.
Are you willing to
From
go
what,
down?
is this based on the letter that you wrote, or the theory that, the proposal that you had like a month ago?
Yeah, I have that with me.
Okay, so yeah, I like the idea of reorganizing the current volunteers from 7 companies into 1 company, because really that's all we have the manpower to run at this point. I mean, last year or the year before, we had talked about reactivating Engine 28, and then that went forward for about a month and then went back. I mean, my thinking is, where are we going to get these volunteers from? How are we going to recruit them?
The chairman is just saying, hey, this has not happened over years and years and years, and we now want to have this discussion on it. You can't ask him to answer any single exact question in a given moment without looking at it. We have volunteers who come. We know that there are volunteers. We know there's a wealth of money there. And we have examples of great volunteers turning into the fire chief. It works. It has worked. Scarsdale uses it. Portchester has a pure volunteer firefighting staff. Their volume is greater than ours. Their density is greater than ours. Their land area is greater than ours.
Their tax base is smaller than ours,
Scarsdale's tax base is what? The same?
larger than ours.
Okay, so the point is, he wants to look at it. I would like to look at it. Stewart would like to look at it.
Not if it doesn't include our volunteers that have already.
Nobody's
you're not
excluded.
saying
Nobody's putting
I am
condition,
putting a
nobody's
you're
putting any
indicating
condition
that
on
you
it.
wanna, if what it sounds like to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you're drawing a line in the sand between those who have already served and creating a new
Not at
company
all.
without them being
Not for
involved.
me.
No,
Not for me.
no,
I'd like to see.
no.
So you'll
down there
include Mr. Laurie and Mr. Vichy in the plans?
Unequivocally,
Well,
why
if you
not?
read my plan that I sent out back in December sometime, or January 5th maybe, if you read the January 5th plan, I didn't exclude anybody. So,
Let's just move on from this point. Nobody's excluded, Stu. Let's just move on. No exclusions. We all want to talk about it.
Then you need
The
to
residents would
include them
like
in
to
the
hear how we can
This can't be a board movement. You have to include the volunteers in the conversation.
The residents would-
Set up a committee to explore it.
The
I like
resident,
that
good
idea.
idea.
Would you be willing to be on that committee, Brian?
Yeah.
absolutely,
Have some volunteers, have a board member, have the chief.
absolutely.
Sit down
then
and
go
talk
from there.
together and see if we
I will
can
tell you,
resolve this.
I've been asked multiple times, by a couple of different places, to be a volunteer. I'm happy to do it. Anybody who has an opportunity to volunteer, at any time they move into a community, whether you're there for a week or 50 years, they should take.
I have a question for you.
Excuse me, I'm almost
You-
finished talking.
Okay.
But they should have that opportunity, don't you think? Yes. Yeah, so.
Do you
sorry,
have
go ahead.
all the requirements to be a volunteer for New York? Have you looked at those yet? Seriously, because if not, I think the chief can probably provide it to everybody.
I don't have anything. I'm here for
Okay.
3 weeks, and I've seen what's gone on for the last 10 years, and these guys are sitting red in the face trying to speak about volunteering and helping out. I don't have anything. I'm happy to spend
Right, good.
all of my leisure time
Sure. Then
on
we can
looking
try
at
and
it.
work it, but
And
I'd say
I will ask you, because you now have knowledge of Portchester, you're over there now, I would appreciate you helping me with looking at Portchester.
Chief, could you provide us with a rundown of what's required of volunteers in the state of New York? Do you have ready access to that, like something
Yeah.
simple that you could put together, or a copy and
knows it.
paste to us?
Yeah, well, so if they were going to become a volunteer, they would have to go through Firefighter 1 up at the Westchester Training Academy. That's a 3 to 4 month class, 2 to 3 days a week, 3 or 4 hours an evening. Once they do that, then they're certified to go on calls, put on an air pack, that sort of stuff. That's where they get their basic firefighter training. The recurring training is whatever the department decides would be the requirement. You could say 20 hours, 50 hours. They have to make a certain amount of drills, 2 drills a month times 3 hours times 12 months. And they would have to do OSHA training. So OSHA requires a certain amount of training on respiratory. They would have to get fit tested and all that kind of stuff. Now, keep in mind that normally the fit captain used to do that training, and we're choosing not to staff that position, so we would need to have that fit captain if we were going to have somebody doing the training for the volunteers and keep track of it. My biggest concern would be accountability. So as Commissioner Keating said, when I was a volunteer, we just showed up in our cars, put on a coat, a helmet, boots, and an air pack and went in. You may not even check. You're just, I'm just going to go help that guy with the hose. If that happens, somebody could get killed and we don't even know that he was at the fire. So I would have huge accountability, there would have to be a lot of changes to how we used to operate years ago.
You can see how in depth we look
As
at
far as
everything.
training and accountability and all that kind of stuff. So, I would definitely want to be part of the conversation if there was going to be any reactivation or starting anew of the volunteers.
And in your vision, you wouldn't be looking at any of them being interior certified?
It depends on, how we wanted to use them. They could just be scene support, exterior firefighters, or, it depends on.
Yeah, just that they have to go for the additional training.
Do you believe it would be preferable for them to come as a unit, with an officer and for accountability reasons, so that you
Well,
know?
so if we were going to use them, if one volunteer showed up, it probably wouldn't be that useful. So I would want a minimum of at least 4. I would want them to show up in a department vehicle so they could announce on the radio, like a van or something, that, 2104 or whatever designation
How
we're
about a
going to give
reserve
them is
apparatus?
responding. What's that?
A reserve apparatus.
Yeah, so that if we want to get them to the point where they're going to start driving rigs or something, again, it's going to come into training and,
We have
all
a
that kind of stuff. So,
Fantastic driver right
so,
here.
and those reserve apparatus aren't always available. We just had, engine 28 was out for service, engine 27 was out for service, and that reserve apparatus was being used as a frontline rig. So there's not always reserve apparatus available. So,
And it may add to helping bring down the overtime.
So my point, I've emailed the board a proposal in January 5th, I guess. And what I thought we should do is we should find out what we have today as far as fire companies, the membership in each company with real addresses, the bylaws of each company, so we know whether these fire companies actually are really companies anymore. And then when we find out what's the most viable company out of the 5 or 6 we have, my guess Waverly sounds like the most likely to have the most members. We could rename it to be like United Eastchester or some name where it's Eastchester New Fire Company.
We
And the members who have served the community and are living in town who want to become exempt members, because we're starting this new, they put in their papers, they become exempt members. The fire company decides who is going to be in their new company, because you're going to merge all these companies together to one. So the board's addressing one company. It's not the VOA, it's not North End Hose Company, it's not Waverly, it's just one new fire company. They're all responsible for that one fire company, because the idea of having 7 or 6 fire companies anymore where there's only 2 and 3 members in each of these companies is just, we got to get there, so let's just get there.
Well, let's look at it, because you don't know. Tomorrow, we can find out that we have 100 people who are interested in volunteering.
Right, but they
It may
do.
be a burgeoning thing, and may need everybody.
Well, yeah, but they can be in one unit, one company.
I think there's some of that going on.
Because
How are we
the
going to reach those 100 people, though? How are we going to inform them that the fire district is looking to reactivate the volunteers and recruit?
Embryonic stages. We'll look at all of it. We'll figure it out.
Now, I was looking at the training records for New York State for everybody who was ever an Eastchester fireman, and I wasn't meaning to do this, Jamie sent me out the 2019 training records and had everybody in it going back to the 1970s, because New York State doesn't delete or change anyone. And there are a few firefighters, I would say Medina in particular, who actually had pretty good training. And so he might be someone who could be a focus point, because he did have a lot of activity there. And on the career side, I got to say this, Captain Dempsey, there's a guy who's taken every training class known to mankind, and we're probably pretty fortunate to have him sticking around after 32 years with all the training he has, because he could go at any time. But he is by far, I would think, the most trained officer maybe in Westchester County. That's unbelievable.
He's excellent.
So, but that's where we are. So yeah, I think we should find out, what do we have there today? Ask the fire companies for their names, their addresses, what they got there today, and then go from there to see if there's a willingness to unite under one roof, because that's what they really need to do. If anybody wants to challenge that, be my guest.
I think
And
it's a
then,
great idea. So
and then get somebody who is the most trained out of that group, who's had the most training, because if they had the training, they have some willingness, and then have that discussion to see because the volunteers spend every year thousands upon thousands of dollars on retention and recruitment. So they're spending the money on retention and recruitment. We should find out why we're not getting value out of it.
sounds crazy to me.
So that's my discussion point. Where'd Tom go? He just ran out, huh?
Okay.
Oh, there you go. I didn't see, you leaned back and I didn't see you there. I was going to check the floor next.
Tom would never leave.
So that's where I'm at. If anybody wants to add to that discussion or not, we
I think
can.
it's a great start.
You sent out a flyer, Tom, this is for you. The flyer went out to the whole town, right? I don't know how many you sent.
One zip code was deleted.
And what was the results on that?
We got approximately 8 returns looking to possibly becoming members that we're working with right now.
Great.
And they know the requirements because I didn't even know it was 3 or 4 days a week for 3 or 4 months to get firefighter
That's
one.
been explained. That's the
Okay.
new firefighter 1, and then there's firefighter 2 after that, and a host of other.
So has anyone looked into going into those courses or?
Well, no, it's still in the application process.
Yeah, they would have to.
Members shows interest in becoming a member. It goes through an application process. It's brought up at the meeting, so-and-so wants to join, okay, give an application, it goes out to the prospective member. Application comes back, it's reviewed by the company secretary, so on and so forth. It's turned in, then it goes to the board like the other dozen that we gave Dennis that fell out by the wayside. and hopefully it gets processed in a normal amount of time. We don't see a need to regroup into one company. The fire department works fine now. You have a chief, he runs it. You have training, run it, just do it. We knew when I joined, our company met on the first and second Tuesday of the month, 2 drills a month. One was done by the working captain of the day. This is before the fire department ran EMS calls. Now that's all we do is run EMS calls, so the captain doesn't have the time to train. This is why when we got to a fire scene, the captain knew who you were, where you were from, what you were able to do, so on and so forth. That's not, so that needs to be relooked at. As far as reorganizing and starting from square one, does not need to be done.
Oh, Tom, let me just try to change your attitude there slightly. We're trying to be helpful. We could always do an intermunicipal agreement with Scarsdale. Just listen, hear me out. We could do an intermunicipal agreement with Scarsdale and get one of their training officers, because they're a career department, to work part-time here as a part-time training. Yeah, combination department.
Like us.
Yeah. I think-
And we could do an intermunicipal agreement for a part-time training officer to work with the volunteers. That would be proper. You could do that. But this threshold question about putting them all into one, you're looking at it from the years ago, this is how we always did things. How you always did things and what federal and state law and all the regulations that are in place now versus years ago are drastically different. And your fire companies today, and I know this for a fact, don't have enough memberships to meet, most of them, to meet their charters to say they can be a fire company. They just don't have enough members to live in town who are part of their members. They also, none of them that I can find have registered with the IRS because the IRS records are totally searchable. And if you look up IRS records, none of your fire companies have tax ID numbers that I can tell. You go out and spend $100,000 to get an engine redone, and I don't believe any sales tax was charged to that engine. And what tax ID number was used? Nobody knows. So I think we're trying to protect the taxpayers by doing things in a regulatory manner, which is good for the volunteers, and it's good for everybody. So I know there's a legacy idea. We don't want to lose the identity of these companies, but think about it from a broader term, and you're only one person representing at this microphone your view at this point because you haven't gone back to your membership. But the membership may be welcoming the idea of consolidation if it leads to a better, stronger place for them to be. That's all I'm saying.
You
Just
could
keep it
have
open.
you could have 8 other guys that would tell you the same thing that I'm just telling you.
Well, I'm saying you're not
Nothing wrong
talking to
with the
them yet.
system.
Go back and talk to them and come back and try to work, in other words, I'm saying there's two sides here. Try to be cooperative and work with us, and it'll get much more done.
You just keep an open mind, and if it does, if it makes sense to have all the different companies, great, and if it doesn't, also
We've
great.
been here working with you for 15 years. For 15 years, you've tried to kill us, and we're still standing here. Absolutely. Now you're looking at starting something totally different that doesn't need to be done.
No, we're just looking.
Listen, when we get a volunteer application and I give it to the chief, he brings it to the board after the physical and his background check and all that is, process it. Don't squirrel it away in a desk drawer like he's been doing for 14 years.
No, we haven't been.
That's all.
Tom, we're trying to be,
We had 12 to 15 applicants that we turned into the chief, and Chief Brogan himself, oh, I got to see what Dennis says. Dennis is one person.
okay.
You do your job and then bring it to the board. That's all it is.
Tom,
But Tom, are you compromising? We're here trying
And
to
I'm-
fix something. You're saying it's working
And
fine.
I'm saying
Tom,
it's
let me
not
talk.
broken.
I think
It is, but it's not working. It may not be
is
broken,
working.
but it's not.
If you let us work with it, do it. We'll do our job, you do your job. When an application comes and everybody has it processed, okay? When the chief gets it and it goes to the state for arson investigation or whatever else it does, once it comes to the board, process it and let the man start his probationary period and send him up to the fire academy.
But Tom,
That's all you got to do.
Tom, you're not viewing this like a professional corporation would. And let me just say this to you. You want us to tell somebody, go join the pick a name, XYZ, North End Hose Company. Well, what happens if the North End Hose Company, we just made that person a member of, doesn't have a tax ID number, hasn't filed taxes in more than 3 years, so therefore they're not a legal entity, they're not anything. So we would like to learn.
Yeah, so I think we are getting ahead of ourselves.
But what I'm saying is, we can't sign somebody up for a corporation unless we know that corporation
You're trying to do this
exists.
so you can get the money from the benevolent. It's never going to happen.
Tom, so I have a question. Of the 15 applicants that you mentioned about,
Yes.
do you have those? Because I'm
He's
happy
got
to
them.
liaise.
No, I don't.
I'm happy to, if you can.
And they were lost. Dennis lost them at
sorry.
headquarters.
No, Dennis didn't lose them.
I'm not.
We will have copies made from now on
Do you,
with names of individuals. I don't know them offhand right now.
Right.
Everything that we get gets turned over to them after we process it.
okay.
They went to chief, the past chief, who gave them to Dennis, who did nothing.
How far are you from finishing the process now of the new applicants?
I don't know, I can find out.
But you can't have them join a company unless you know the company
I will say,
exists.
Mr. Keating, if you look at the I'm just going off of memory, if you look at the January 2017 meeting, if I'm remembering that accurately, it could even have been February, it was when Grogan was still here, and I was in that seat, believe that Mr. Vichy handed in a volunteer application at the board meeting to the chief, and I want to say that maybe the last name was Walpole, something like that. It was a younger man, probably around 19, 20 years old.
That to me-
Check that video and see. I think he handed in one at that time
That to
to
me
Chief
is
Grogan.
very encouraging, and if you can get him or her, I don't know who it was, if you can have them. Okay, so fine.
think it might have
So,
been Walpole,
let-
but
If
it's
I could just,
3
if I
years
could
old.
just say something. I don't know about the past. I would like to have the volunteers come in. I think they can add to the fire district. I think it will help the fire district. I think the residents would like to see that also. And any volunteer should be given the opportunity to volunteer in any capacity. So I would like to see, and I can be overruled here in an instant moment, is get your applications together. Nobody's being excluded. I think this discussion on just adding it centrally may be a tiny bit premature. Maybe
We need to.
well,
how are we
let me
gonna
just
decide?
finish, if
Go
you don't
ahead.
mind. We may be able to have that conversation in a month from now or 2 months from now. But for today, which is the first time this is being sprung on Mr. Vichy, let's just give it an opportunity and not worry about the tax IDs and not worry about.
No, I get
just
that.
let's-
I get
Let's
that.
just give it an opportunity and hear from it, because I'm envisioning something like Scarsdale, where we have a combination of X amount of firefighters and X amount of volunteers. That's my vision, and,
Now,
Just so that you're aware, the Portchester Fire Department, which is now all volunteer, they have 8 companies. So it's not one department. It's one department like ours, but they have 8 companies.
right, I
Same thing with the town of Mamaroneck, is a combination department. They have, I think, 3 companies. Largemont is the same thing. I think they have 2. They have an engine and truck company.
and Tom, do you know about Portchester? My understanding is they have a greater volume than the fire district of Eastchester. They have a greater population, they have greater density, they have
Yes.
all those things, and I haven't heard a single thing negative about Portchester's fire district. And I haven't heard a single thing about loss of life or anything like that. I'm willing to hear everything, and I'd like to hear everything. I think the residents
Know
deserve
enough
that.
about Portchester that they do have 8 companies like us, but they respond as a department like we do.
So, but why are you opposed, let's say, if we were to centralize the volunteers? I mean, if Tucko's
You
got,
don't need to centralize it.
no, but if Tucko's got 2 and Union's got 3 or 4, why do you want to have 5 companies with 2 and 3 men per company when you can put them all into one house or
The
one
fire
company?
department started.
Yeah, but you're going back on legacy and you don't want.
Yeah, but it,
But you say it's working okay. Well, what's working? Because you're just having 5 companies scattered with a handful of people in each company. So if we were to move forward and we were to say, all right, let's have just one company, and we decide that it's going to be North End, for whatever reason, and let's say, just pick one, why would that be, why would you oppose that?
Why would you want just one company being in one area?
We
You
don't
have a
know how many-
multitude, let's say you have a multitude of firefighters
Okay?
in all the firehouses. I know when I was younger and did it, and everybody here that's been a volunteer did it. You'd hang out on a Saturday at the firehouse, watch a college football game, the engine rolled, you rolled, but now the engine's got 5 guys on it. You put everybody in one firehouse, that engine doesn't roll, you're losing 5 guys. So guys join the firehouses in their community. The firehouse on Wilmot Road, the people that lived in that area
Right,
joined that
corners, I
firehouse.
get all that, okay.
Yeah, that was before, but Tom, you were just, in, let's say
Again,
the
what's
North End.
changed?
Look, what's changed is this, the North End Firehouse, the second floor used to have a bar in it. Now it's a dorm. The Station 1, the second floor, used to have a
You
pool
did-
table and a
you
bar.
put the dorm in
It's
there.
now a
Took the bar
dorm.
out. We don't need a bar, you just need a TV and a chair to sit in.
What I'm saying is the North End Firehouse has been converted to career quarters completely. Station 1, career quarters completely. You could, now take Chester Heights.
We have some
Chester
space.
Heights could be converted into a volunteer quarters, professional volunteer quarters with an elevator and that type of thing. You got retired member or exempt members who can't go up a flight of stairs. Well, they'd like to go to a meeting and go there and get an elevator to the second floor for socialization. So I'm saying is, you have, Commissioner Carlo's point is, try to think about what we're saying and where we are today and how things have changed. Take something like a LoSAP program. The taxpayers of this town shot down the LoSAP program 25 years ago, right? You probably remember, went out for a vote and got shot down. That was pretty much the end of the volunteer fire service after that program got shot down.
No, it wasn't.
But most successful fire districts who have volunteers have a LoSAP program. I think that's fair to say.
Some do, some don't.
I would think if you're a volunteer fire company, you want a LoSAP program. And a LoSAP program gives you $20 a month after so many years for your service. So it's a formulaic thing that put out by the New York State Department of Labor, and it's where you'd have to go. But for the board to go towards a LoSAP program or to really embrace the volunteers, there's going to have to be a two-way street here.
I think we're getting into
Yeah,
the
we're just,
weeds.
we're, Dennis, we
What
are
we
really
need-
getting ahead.
We're getting the
Okay.
weeds.
We
All right,
need,
so,
we need
Tom-
to reestablish the board's volunteer committee that they used to have for just about every single facet of fire business, whether it was construction, budget, health and wellness, safety. We should reestablish the volunteer committee. It should be a committee that is going to be meeting moving forward, trying to put together some type of strategic plan that could possibly bear the fruit of something of a combination moving forward. Talking here is not moving the ball forward.
Well, here it is.
I think that having the conversation
I disagree. We moved it forward quite a
privately
bit.
with board members, with the chief, with volunteer members, and trying to see whether or not there's an actual path to success is the first step. Sure, we had the conversation today, it seems like it's in the direction, but we don't know what that direction's actually gonna look like. It can't happen here, it should happen
Tom.
once a month.
You're a
And
volunteer.
I'm not speaking me personally, but I can tell you the vast majority of the members are not going to go for the one company system.
So the first meeting
Right.
should be everyone sitting down and voicing their concerns
Well,
about the
there'll be others
volunteers.
We
at
just
that meeting.
established that we're getting ahead of ourselves with the breaking up or bringing together of all the companies, we're not sure. So Tom, you're a volunteer,
Right,
right? You want to be a volunteer.
right,
You want to continue to be a volunteer.
third generation.
I wanted to be a volunteer. We need to know how many companies there are of volunteers and how many members there are. Now, if it turn, I think what they're really saying is if it
That
turn,
paperwork's been filed with the board.
understood. Let's do the paperwork. You
It's already
can,
been done.
okay, so let's just do it again, or let's try to find it.
Wait, the list of
we don't have
volunteers?
We don't have it.
All right, so
No, but we've asked a few times, Tom, right, to get a list of names and addresses. We've never gotten addresses. We've got names and badge numbers.
We did that.
We haven't gotten addresses from everybody.
Dave,
all right,
we did
this,
give-
that's, and this seems,
But we need to get that.
let me just finish.
Why would you need to get something we've already turned
The time
over?
you last listened to us.
If you already have it, why not give it again if it's lost? It's no big
You never gave
deal.
us, you never gave us
Fire
addresses.
department.
Okay,
Once something like that is turned in, that's a
can I
record.
finish?
You should have that.
I understand.
Can I, Tom? It's fine. You don't have any reason to not put together a list of us to find out who will be our volunteers. I personally want, unless my colleagues say, no, that's not happening, I personally want the volunteers to start showing up, whether internally certified or externally. I want them to start showing up at the fires and have the residents benefit from that volunteer force. In addition to,
We turned the list in.
okay,
Dennis reviewed the list. And he
let-
read the list.
Please.
Wait a second. And we were questioning, one of our members lives over the border of Chester Heights into Mount Vernon at 212, can't even think of the name of the street now. It's behind the mobile station in Chester Heights. 4 houses over, his house is in the Mount Vernon Fire District. He lives closer to the firehouse in Chester Heights than his brother who lived on Archer Drive in Chester Heights. And he made us think about it because we gave him his address, which is legal because he's within the 1 mile limit
oh, is that the
of
case,
the
1
outside
mile?
of the
Okay,
district.
so fine, there's
Correct. So
one
to say that you
applicant.
don't have it, he
Right.
questioned it out of me.
Tom, I think Mr.
What-
Keating is asking for, and I don't think it's unreasonable, and I think you should just produce a list currently from 2 years
It's
ago.
the same list that we gave you, Dennis.
No,
What
we
you doing?
don't. We've never received a list with addresses by
You
company.
got it, you read it, he read it at the meeting.
Right, Mr. Vichy.
Tom,
And I asked not to read the members on it because there were names of deceased members.
yeah, we don't need
that
to
he
read it
read.
out in the public, but we'd
Mr.
nice to
Vichy,
get it.
Mr.
To
Vichy, in June, when we did the event here at Bronxville Village Hall,
Yes,
the
that should have
inspection,
been, there should have been an.
Didn't we
attendance.
receive 5 or so companies of information?
4 of the 7.
4 of the 7? All right, so the chief
But
has
it
them.
wasn't addresses.
Yeah, I don't know what was on there, but I know we asked for that.
Right, so,
It was
you know
part of the Red Book's requirement. We had the
Correct.
inspection, you
There's an
fulfilled.
attendance that goes with the.
Right, so I don't know what, the chief should have those, right?
Lisa will have.
Lisa has them.
Lisa received them, and.
Yeah,
I
Dennis,
believe
you weren't here for the
One of the
inspection.
companies did not provide addresses. They just did
Okay.
have names and badge numbers. The other 3 companies did.
So as
provide
recent as
addresses.
June, you've submitted some addresses for at least some of the companies, let's say.
At least their name and
Perfect,
badge.
perfect, Tom, perfect. I'll go to Lisa, and I'll ask Lisa for those, and then I'll also ask you to sit with me, as my colleagues,
But you need from them, and we're just going to go around in circles. I mean, this is where.
I'll ask for them to be updated, that's it, it's not a big deal.
See, I'm
It seems
somewhat
like we're
skeptical.
fighting over giving the names so that we can, you want to come to the fire, you want to volunteer, I want you there also.
Right.
Just tell me who the guys are that are going to be there so that the chief can organize their participation after their certification.
And
That's it.
that's all well and good. Dennis's goal is to try to get the benevolence money.
I don't, that's,
No,
Right.
that's not the case.
I would say this, and I do applaud and support Mr. Keating's interest in this.
Thank you.
I would personally make a motion to reestablish that board volunteer committee, have you steer it, because you're interested in that, and see if there's a way for us to be able to not so much change their world, but find out what the district needs, whatever that may be, but sit down and have legitimate conversations with people to get answers.
I don't disagree, and that's what
Yeah.
I tried to address
I'll
with you
second
earlier.
that motion.
Tom, do you want to be on that committee?
I mean, there can only be 2 members on it. Obviously, Brian wants to be on
Yeah,
it.
do you want to
So
be on
I'll
that?
defer to
let's
you.
put Paul on.
You be on it.
All
You've
right,
got the
Brian-
best relationship with
Brian and I will be on
board.
that committee
So
then.
that would be good. That would be good,
Well,
yeah.
you two guys, we'll tell you what, Tom and, we don't need a formal motion, Tom and,
But there's one on
Brian.
the floor, so we
Yeah.
should just vote.
doesn't need to get a second, though.
It is second.
Seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. The motion is that we appoint Tom
Yeah, Tom and Mr.
Commissioner
Keating.
Keating and Commissioner Roach to a volunteer committee to
Right.
attend their meetings on behalf of the board.
Right.
And negotiate and work with them.
Or establish our own your own meeting schedule. It doesn't have to be at their meeting. You've got to create a committee with them to get together, even if 255 Main Street, and have some representatives sit down and just kind of suss this material out.
Can even be Tuckahoe.
Yeah.
It could be anywhere. But
Right.
If you were going to come to our meeting, we would need to know.
Right, you have
Once
certain-
you come, our meeting.
That's
will-
fair.
This is really
That's fair.
just the beginning. I will say this to you in earnest. When was the last time a volunteer showed up for fun? Regardless of the reason, when was the last time they showed up?
Yes, Dennis.
I'm asking you, I'm not asking.
I have no idea because he stopped us once he got on.
So what all I'm trying to
So it's
establish,
15 years,
what
maybe?
I'm trying to establish is it has been some time where you personally have been told,
Right.
come,
It's come, don't come. It's up to the
come.
chief, and the chief reverts it back to Dennis.
I say come, if Tom says come, and Stu says come,
Listen,
and Dennis says
We
come.
all have pagers. We hear the alarms come in and stuff like that. If you were available, we'll go.
Beautiful.
I don't want to go there and then sit on the bumper. I'll stretch
it's-
hose, hook up the hydrants, do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah,
Can't have
and you're still young. I heard that comment earlier, and you're still young, and you look young too, so.
Without physical surgery.
Right, absolutely.
Chief, but just to be clear here, no one can show up at a fire scene at this point in time unless under the direct control of the chief. So we don't want people showing up at fire scenes tomorrow unless they're invited to by
Just
the
a
chief.
committee to have a
The
discussion.
chief, the committee's fine, but I don't want any miscommunications here that,
Vote on it. Vote on the committee.
well, I am.
Right, everybody understands that the chief
Mr.
is in
Keating-
charge of everything.
Right, but we don't want
The
people,
stand-down order is still in effect
right.
until such time it's revoked by the chief, because it was instituted by Chief Brogan.
Correct.
I believe sometime after Hurricane Sandy, I think was the last time the volunteers were activated, which
Correct.
was 2007.
This is going to be a work
So
in
we're talking
progress,
13 years ago.
So, a work in progress. So, Mr. Commissioner Keating, are you willing to go on this committee? You're yes or no? Paul, are you going to make a put him on the committee?
Yes, of course, yes.
He's on.
You're going to be on the committee, Tom? You're on. And,
Are we voting?
yeah, we're voting.
Oh, aye.
And I'll say aye. So you two guys negotiate with the volunteers, keeping the chief fully in the loop as to what we're...
Chief should be at those meetings.
Well, he's going to drive the bus, basically.
Yeah, when
The chief
possible.
doesn't, the chief doesn't, right, we're happy to exchange anything with the
Yeah.
chief, but he doesn't need to be there. But,
And I would just add, there's no reason why these meetings have to occur at their meetings. They honestly should be separate, because you want a sampling of people from your group, sampling from the board, chief schedule, maybe a captain, and kind of suss through the material together and kind of see what's there and what you can move forward with.
The idea is the whole definition of a volunteer is to get people to come and help. And there's no reason why you cannot come and help. There's zero reasons for it.
Well, when they're properly trained and the accountability is in place, then I would
There's-
agree with that
there's
statement, but I
gonna
don't
be-
agree with the blanket statement,
I
there's
will,
no reason not to come.
Chief, I will tell you, I wholeheartedly agree with you. There will be many more conditions than that, not just the safety requirements. I first and foremost would want it, and they should be able to get the right training. And there's no reason not to be able to volunteer.
All right, can we move on to any new business for the board to discuss?
Yeah, I would make one bit of new, just two things. They're actually calendar related. If this board wants to continue meeting on Saturday mornings, though I understand that some schedules are being taken into account, I'm compromising, but I don't subscribe to it. I understand. I'm not trying to start a debate.
Appreciate
I
it.
think that we should establish a calendar no matter what about when we're going to meet. It's really not appropriate for the public to get a notice a week or even less before a meeting in their email and say, oh, hey, we're having a meeting. The people who are here today are the same amount of people and the same individuals that we had at all of our meetings last year. So I would make a motion that the board adopt a calendar, and if it has to be Saturday mornings, then make it whatever, the last Saturday of the month, the first Saturday, whatever the case may be. There should be some consistency, with the exception of the September meeting for the public hearing for the budget and the meeting in October for the budget itself for approval. Those will have to be those Tuesday evenings. So if anybody can't make that, they should know in advance, either have to take time off
Well, the one
or
has to
come
be.
to it.
The one has to be a Tuesday evening. The-
Right, but the September meeting has to be a certain amount of days prior to that exact meeting. It may not be a weekend.
Yeah,
think
no,
it's-
there's a window of days.
Well, last year, I think it was, we had to have it on the 24th or the 26th of September, and then the budget was adopted on the 16th.
Right.
Or maybe the 12th of October, so there isn't a lot of leeway with those 2 dates.
Okay, so,
I would just want to add discussion to that. So we have 4 board members, the chief, who actually, it is convenient to not do it on Saturday, but doing during the day, actually. And so I would say, let's leave it open for discussion and come back and address it later
I mean,
on.
during the day of the week?
Correct.
Well, I don't think that's appropriate, because people work. We have to be accessible to the public. It's not,
people work
even if they
nights,
don't
too.
come, whether or not people come to the meeting or not, we don't get to make the decision to make it harder for them because they don't come.
Here, so that's
So,
fine. That was
I just-
glad you,
I can't
I'm glad you
subscribe
said
to
it that
So I
way.
said the Saturday, I was compromised, I said the Saturday's fine,
Thank you.
but I don't think a weekday, morning, or afternoon, I don't think it's appropriate at all. There's no other board that does that. Not even the ARB committee in Tuckahoe does that, and they're very small. They're all at night. So I would say, if you want to keep it on Saturday mornings,
I will say, I've looked at the
July and
audience.
August, I don't see Saturday morning meetings. Sorry, guys, but I don't think I'll be in town those mornings.
Meetings missed.
It's just the way it is. So
We just-
I think we can this last meeting notice I sent out, and there was a delay in forwarding it. I had sent it out, and it didn't get sent out for days after I sent it. I sent it on a late Friday during the business hours, but it wasn't forwarded. So that was just a hang-up. But I think we'll try, we can do I think we play it by ear. We just work around,
No,
see how
I
it
think
goes.
We
that
should
we
have,
need to have
what
a
we're
regular
saying is, we
calendar.
should have a schedule of meetings on our website for the year.
In general, we should.
I mean, they can be
adopting a
changed
calendar.
if they have to be
Right,
changed.
of course, but
we-
we're the only committee, we're the only board, again, that doesn't have an adopted calendar.
We're also, the Village of Bronxville is a totally volunteer board, but most of the
They're
other
not
boards,
volunteers, they're elected.
they're elected.
They're not, just because they don't get paid. A volunteer can decide to come and participate or not. An elected official has a certain obligation, a fiduciary responsibility.
And we met
We're
it.
not volunteers.
But I think we met that obligation today. We covered all our
I'm-
duties very well.
Once again, I think for right now, an approved schedule of Saturdays that work for
How about March
people's
7th
work
for our
schedules
next
makes
meeting?
Take a
sense.
vote on it, and then we'll, and deal with
And
it.
I'm sorry. I'm also hoping that we'll have, we'll consider the second meeting. I think that when we had our second meetings a month, we got through a lot more work, and there wasn't that huge 30 days drop of information.
Right.
And they can be more flexible, obviously.
But I think we do have more time to negotiate on these Saturday mornings, because if this was held at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night, it would be 11 o'clock at night right now, and everybody would be falling
But that's
over.
okay, but that's available. If people
Right.
are at work, they
Right.
come home, if they choose to go to a meeting, they can. If they need to watch it live on television, they
People
can
work
at
night,
home.
people work
Well,
nights too, so it's a
Stu, I will
mix.
say that, what time were the meetings at night?
Usually
6:30.
Yeah, so
No, they were at 6:30. Mr. Carlo asked us to
I'm not
push
getting
the
home
meetings
until
up.
10 o'clock, we're
Okay.
going in at 7 in the morning and not getting home until 10 o'clock anyway, and so, we live in an area where people are in work all day long.
But
So,
I understand that, but when you're elected to a board, you are supposed to accommodate the board and the job, not the other way around. Now, I'm not saying compromise and accommodations aren't made. I made a lot of accommodations last year for a lot of members who couldn't make meetings. We changed meeting dates, we changed times, never a question about it. But we still had an
why
adopted
don't we just
calendar.
table the discussion? And
Okay,
then we
we'll
can
table
talk
it.
about
How
it.
about our
Table it
next
till
meeting?
November.
How about our next meeting, March 7th, I think is a Saturday?
I guess.
We can put that down as our next Saturday date.
But that's going to be a long time before we convene as a board.
Yeah, but we don't have a lot. We got a lot of stuff done today. If you look, we got done in Chester Heights, the phone systems, we got a ton of stuff done today. I mean, a whole barrage of things to get done. We're not going to get there much coming to the board between now and then.
People mentioned we met them.
And if we have to have a meeting, call a meeting. I mean, if you need to call a meeting, call a meeting. Or if Jamie needs something, or the chief needs something, we can always call a meeting.
All
So
right, let's-
now we have,
Stu made a motion,
I'll retract the motion. That's
okay,
fine.
so then let's move on.
Somebody else wants,
okay,
feels that.
Local 916, and you're going up next after Local 916. Okay.
We don't want to keep Steve up anymore.
Mr. Vishy?
Sorry, Steve.
Just one little tidbit. Under the department rules, Article 1, Section 4, the regular meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners shall be held on the second Thursday of every month at 8 o'clock at fire headquarters or such a place the fire district may designate by the Board of Fire Commissioners.
Right, and we have the full authority to change that anytime we want.
Oh, okay.
Right, but I think you have to
Let
do
me,
that with
let
a
me,
motion.
let me ask a question then. Since you could change the rules and regulations and not make a reprint of the book, why did you crucify the Tuckahoe Host Company because their 1930 rule book bylaws excluded black males when it has been proven at the June meeting that one of their members came to this firehouse here in Bronxville and happens to be an African-American male in full fire department regalia, but you choose to allow that to affect an election?
No, I think, let me respond. We had asked for all the volunteer companies to give their bylaws. The company that, he got the bylaws, and the bylaws read what, let me say what I'm saying. The bylaws that were submitted to us had wording, not exactly what you're saying, but you reflected it. But I'm just saying, that was what happened. I don't want to go into it, so.
You know what?
Those are the bylaws we
We
received.
went through this time and time over. Dennis, you just pursued this all the time. All the time. I don't think anybody up there, or anybody in this room, or anybody in this whole town was around here in 1895. And that's when the rules were written, okay? I told you, and I told the board, and I proved to you that that was changed 40 years ago. You can't look me in the face, I know that. I showed you that that was changed 40 years ago. We did it at our meeting. We changed that and struck that clause out of the bylaws. The rules said white male only, and we changed that rule 40 years ago. You persisted to keep it up. Anytime you fought for ammunition, you brought that up. Stephen Baker brought it up in the last commissioner's election. I fought a gutter campaign. You stayed out in front of this firehouse telling people that Anthony Laurie does not like white female ladies on the board.
never
He
said
voted
that.
against it. You said it.
No, I
You said
didn't.
it. But you didn't tell people you voted against Lisa. You didn't tell people you voted against Lisa when Lisa was running for the position. You just did everything to harm everybody.
I'm sorry.
And you're doing everything. You're a two-face because you have destroyed the volunteers since the day you sat on that board. Don't look out elsewhere. Look at me in the face. You destroyed the volunteers since don't tell me to turn my voice down because
Mr.
you're
Northback-
making me boil my stomach over to watch you turn the volunteers down and then come here today or this afternoon and tell us that you want to revive the volunteers. You got some nerve. You are a two-face. You said it to me in an executive session. You said you don't know how evil and revengeful I could be. And this is the man that's running your fire department. I want the town of Bronxville, Village of Tuckahoe, and Eastchester to know what you said. You said it to me.
Yeah, Mr. Laurie, I said none of these comments.
You said to me, Dennis, that you have no idea how evil and revengeful I could be.
Never.
And you did everything to
No
destroy
way.
it. Yes, you did.
just
Dennis.
move on.
And
We're gonna-
don't say that it's the farthest from the truth.
Mr.
because
Lo-
that's your normal answer.
If you don't lower your voice, we're ending the meeting.
Because I tell the truth. You tell lies.
Okay, Mr. Laurie, have a good night, or good afternoon.
Listen, I'm just telling you. You destroyed me. You tried to destroy my name in this election, and you did a good job. You told people lies, and that's what you are, nothing but a liar. You destroyed the volunteers, and all you see is dollar signs.
Let's just move on, please.
Okay, we're going to move on.
No, you're not going to move on because I'm speaking a little loud. I'm speaking the truth. That man's a liar. You better not fall under his coattails. Because two members up there tried to destroy the paid personnel. They voted against the contract.
I'm my own man. Let's just move on.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
Let's just move on.
Okay, so, I think the public can take what you're saying and measure it themselves.
And don't cut it out either. Let the thing view.
And so, Does anybody, I take it there's no other comments? Any board member comments?
I have none.
None.
Yeah, I'd just like to say congratulations to Captain Stupple, former Assistant Chief Stupple. I wish him the best in his retirement. Mr. Stupple, as well as Mr. Ranalone, probably could do a great job in the future of helping volunteers with training. Instead of going into an IMA with Scarsdale, we could use some of that knowledge that our men have collected over the last couple of, decades? And especially with Paul being a former volunteer. Not saying that you have to do it, but just as an example, it could be a way to keep that money in the district and pay for people who have experience here to do it. The only other thing I will say in response to what we just heard is that I know Mr. Laurie to be a good man. And he has never, ever been someone that has expressed any kind of comment regarding someone's race or sex to me personally. I had been forwarded a multitude of communications during the month of December from various people, whether to my side or in front of me in my life, that indicated the opposite, and that is very disappointing to see a person's reputation like that. I do understand that he is loud today and it's emotional, but as I said in my final comments in December, it has not changed my attitude or appreciation for the service that he has done for this district, the town, the villages, or the country as a veteran, and I would appreciate it if people move forward positively with fire business and otherwise. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Just to add this, for both of their efforts, Dennis has done an immeasurable amount for the fire district, and everybody should take recognition of that. He really has done an amazing job, and we are very lucky to have him. Let's move on.
And we'll move on, but on this last election, just so people are aware, I didn't fund any candidate, I didn't do any mailings, I didn't buy a postage stamp. I was out of the country up until the Monday night. I came back from Vienna, Austria, where I was at Christmas markets for a week. So I think I'm being painted with a bad brush, but that's that. And I'll motion to close the meeting.
Great job. Second.
And thank you for your kind comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Deserve it. Exactly.
Thank you.